I appreciated the joke, Graham, because I also saw that online this week, and some of you that may know that I've actually been on an island this week. I've spent the last week on Lindisfarne, which has been amazing. So it was. I appreciate it, even if anyone else didn't. Okay, so I'm going to look at Proverbs 3. So there's a bit of opportunity for you to, if you want to find it in your Bible, Proverbs 3, verses 5 to 6. So it was a tough one, and I'm sure everyone that's been up here and had to do this, there are so many verses to choose from, so many verses that have been significant to your lives, to your walk. But this is one that has stayed with me pretty much from my early days as a Christian. And it's one that has, been consistent. It's one that I've always gone back to and has been really focal in my life. So I'm going to look at the ESV version. It won't be that much different. And then the New King James Version. So I'm going to read the first version. So, trust in the Lord with all your heart, and do not lean on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make straight your path. I think the NIV version is probably not that much different than that. And then the New King James Version, trust in the Lord with all your heart, lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct your paths. So I like that as well. So it's a significant verse for me because it has really helped during difficult challenges in my life. And you can break it down. There's just so much in there. It seems like such a small passage, but there are kind of 4 principles that that have helped me in terms of that verse. The first one is trusting in the Lord. So trust doesn't come easy, especially from someone who has trusted people in the past and been let down. You begin to build up walls, you begin to build up barriers, and then you eventually learn not to trust anybody because you just don't want to be hurt, you don't want to be let down. You begin to close yourself off, and not depending on anybody at all, because you tend to do everything yourself as well because it's not worth, trusting other people. But I've had to learn that God is not like a person. And where people may let us down, God is faithful and he can be trusted completely. And he asks us to take a step of faith and trust him without wavering, without doubt, as he has the ability to come through for us. He's asking for our whole heart to trust him. He's asking us to trust in him completely. And that's tough, especially when you do have trust issues. But when you've walked with God for some time, you learn that he can be trusted because he's true to his word. He keeps his promises, whether that is for provision, protection, comfort and healing. And throughout my life, I've seen all of those. Raising 2 kids pretty much on my own without the financial support of a husband, the kids without a father. It's been tough, but we've never gone hungry. We've never there's never been a time when we haven't had money, when there hasn't been some provision, whether it be a grocery hamper from church or the miraculous time that someone dropped £1,000 in cash in an envelope through my door because they knew that I didn't have money to pay my bills. That's God, and we can trust him in that. Sometimes it's 11th hour and you're on the edge of your seat and you're thinking, come on, God. But he never fails. He's always there when I've needed him. So that's how it's become easy to trust God. The second thing we're told in that verse is that we're told not to lean on our own understanding. And again, this is a challenge for me. I'm by nature a problem solver and a fixer. So if I see a problem, I fix it, or I try to. But there are some problems that can't be fixed from a limited human perspective. You look at them and you think, no, it's literally impossible. It's an impossible situation, but not necessarily so. There are just some problems that require a heavenly perspective and a heavenly vision, because God alone sees the future. God alone knows the outcome, and we can only see in part. So even when things seem to be getting worse or nothing is changing, and we need not to try to understand it with our own perspective, this is where we go back to the trust. It might be chaos all around, but if we trust God and try not to rely on our own limited knowledge and vision of a situation, then we can still have peace in the midst of it. The third thing, in all your ways acknowledge him. And this is a call to walk close and consistent path with God, in our actions, in our words, in our spiritual and secular lives, at home and at work. And having been on Lindisfarne this week and seeing the way that God is just a rhythm and pattern of their daily life, from their sort of regular daily prayers to just evidence of him there in nature, in creation, talking to the local people and the faith that they have. And it's hard not to see God everywhere when you're there. That's why they call it Holy Island. And it was tough coming back, if I'm honest, because the minute you come back, you lose a little bit of that. You see, everything begins coming in and taking over, and it's hard to keep God in the middle of absolutely everything. But it's something that we need to try to do. And for God to be consistent, not just in the crisis, but in the blessing too. I'm sure I'm not the only one here, but I'm incredibly close to God in the middle of a crisis. And then, because you're on your knees, you're desperate, come on. But when things are going well and life is ticking along, sometimes you can drift away a little bit from having God at the centre of everything that you do. And we need to... Sorry, let me just get my thoughts here. It's easy to acknowledge God and talk about him to others when life is going great, but much more of a challenge when we are suffering or struggling, when life has not been kind. And in addition, we need to acknowledge God not just in church on Sunday, but throughout the week. It needs to permeate our lives. And what happens when we do this, and that's the fourth principle, he promises to make our path straight. So anyone who does any walking in the countryside will know that paths can be bumpy, uneven, have obstacles in the way. They can meander, they can be steep, and even treacherous if we're close to a cliff edge. And sometimes they disappear completely. And we stand there scratching our heads, wondering which direction, which path are we going? And as is often the case with me, you get completely lost. So that's a bit like life, really, isn't it? But if we trust God, if we don't lean on our own understanding, if we acknowledge and allow his presence to permeate every area of our life, he promises to make our paths straight. So that doesn't necessarily mean easy. We'd like it to mean easy. It doesn't always mean easy, but it's straight. It means clear. It means easy to follow. And I particularly like the New King James Version translation where it says he will direct your path. And that gives me this image, this sense of God in front of me, leading me by my hand, knowing the obstacles, knowing the pitfalls, and pulling me in the right direction, away from danger, and directing my steps and leading me to my final destination, which is eternity with him. That's it.